Have you felt it lately? That quiet, unexplainable sense that somebody somewhere has been paying closer attention to your life than you ever gave them permission to? Not a stranger passing by on the street, not a random face lost in a crowded room. Something closer than that, something patient, something that has been watching you for months, quietly, carefully, waiting for the exact right moment to step out of the shadows and into your story. If that feeling has visited you more than once this year, if you have caught yourself turning around for no reason, or felt a presence you could never explain, then hear this clearly. This message is not for everyone. It is for you. And it was never an accident that you are hearing it right now. This is not a ghost story. This is not a warning meant to frighten you into silence. This is a divine alert, a sacred interruption sent to prepare you before something crosses from the unseen into the seen. For months, there has been a woman moving quietly around the edges of your life. She has not knocked on your door. She has not sent a message. She has not introduced herself, and yet she already knows more about you than most people who call themselves close to you. She has studied the way you carry yourself when you think no one is looking. She has noticed the tired sigh you let out at the end of a long day. She has seen you laugh at something small and cry over something you never told anyone about. And through all of it, she has stayed hidden, watching, learning, waiting. Heaven knows her name. Heaven has known her name long before you ever became aware that you were being observed. And heaven is speaking now because what happens next will not happen by accident either. Some of you will want to dismiss this in the next 10 seconds, and that is exactly the reaction the enemy of your peace hopes for, because dismissal keeps you asleep. And heaven did not wake something in your spirit tonight, just to let you drift back into sleep. So before you scroll away, sit with this for a moment. Think honestly about the past several months. Has there been an unexplained heaviness around certain places, certain names, certain moments that felt strangely significant, even though nothing dramatic actually happened? That heaviness is not random. It is the residue of attention, real attention, settling on your life from somewhere just outside your field of vision. Does it ever cross your mind that some of the coincidences you brushed off this year were never coincidences at all? The car that seemed to slow down as you walked past, the name that kept appearing in conversations that had nothing to do with you, the feeling of being looked at in a room full of strangers only for you to turn and find nobody there. If any of this sounds familiar, do not scroll past it as nothing. Write the word aware in the comments right now so that heaven can see that you are paying attention. Let this message land in your spirit before you let it fall out of your memory. Like it if it is stirring something true inside you. Subscribe if you want to know what is coming for the rest of this warning, and share it with someone else who has felt watched but never understood why, because they may need to hear this exact same word today. There are two kinds of watchers in this world, and learning to tell them apart may be the most important lesson of your entire year. The first kind watches to take. They study you the way a predator studies a herd, searching for the moment you're distracted, the moment you're weakest, the moment your guard finally comes down. Their attention feels heavy, invasive, and it leaves you drained even when nothing visible has happened. You know, this kind of watching because your body reacts to it before your mind can explain why. A tightness in your chest, an urge to look over your shoulder, a fatigue that has no physical cause. The second kind watches to give. They study you not to exploit your weakness, but to understand your worth. Their attention, even before you notice it, carries a strange kind of stillness, a sense that something is being protected rather than threatened. The woman who has been watching you for months does not fit neatly into either category yet, and that is exactly why heaven sent this warning before she reveals herself. You are being given the discernment to recognize which one she is before your heart decides for you on emotion alone. You do not need her name yet. To begin recognizing the shape of what has been happening, watchers who mean no harm tend to leave a very particular kind of trace behind them. They linger a half second too long in a doorway before moving on. They choose a seat within view, but never within easy reach. They ask a mutual friend a question that sounds casual, but is really an attempt to learn something true about you without exposing their own interest. If you search your memory honestly, you may find at least one moment this year that fits this description precisely. A moment you brushed off at the time because nothing about it seemed unusual on the surface. Nothing about real, patient attention ever announces itself loudly. It moves the way most important things move, quietly, at the edges, until it is finally ready to step forward. Think back over the last several months. Has there been a woman whose name kept surfacing in unrelated places? Through a friend, through an old contact, through a strange online interaction you almost dismissed? Has there been someone whose face felt oddly familiar the very first time you saw it, as if you were remembering rather than meeting? Has there been a season where you felt eyes on you in public spaces, a coffee shop, a parking lot, a hallway at work, and when you turned to look, there was only a fading impression of someone stepping just out of view? These are not random sensations invented by an anxious mind. These are the residue of real attention, real presence, real proximity that your spirit registered even when your eyes could not confirm it. The body keeps a record long before the mind is willing to admit what it already knows, and your spirit has been keeping that record for months. Have you noticed a specific number, a specific song, or a specific street corner that keeps repeating itself around you, almost as if it is tapping you on the shoulder and asking you to pay attention? Some of you have seen the same 3 digits on receipts, on license plates, on the clock when you happen to glance at it. Some of you have heard the same song play in 3 different places within the same week, a song you had not thought about in years. This is not superstition. This is the language heaven uses when words alone are not enough to get your attention. If you have experienced this kind of repetition recently, comment the word confirmed below, because what you are sensing is real, and the pattern is about to make sense. As the writer C.S. Lewis once observed, pain gets our attention when pleasure alone cannot. That is exactly what this season has been doing to you. The unease you have felt is not there to harm you. It is there to wake you up, to sharpen your senses, to make you the kind of person who notices instead of the kind of person who sleepwalks through the most important encounter of the year. God does not warn his chosen ones about danger without also equipping them to face it. If he allowed you to feel her presence before you saw her face, it is because he wanted you ready, not terrified. There is a difference between fear that paralyzes and awareness that prepares. And what has been building in your spirit for months now is the second one, not the first. Consider for a moment the older stories, the ones passed down for thousands of years, where a woman waited at a well not knowing the servant approaching would change the entire direction of her family line, or where someone gleaning quietly in a field caught the eye of a man who had been watching her diligence long before he ever spoke a word to her. Providence has always worked this way, moving 2 people slowly toward each other through ordinary tasks and ordinary days, long before either of them understood what was actually happening. Watching, in these older stories, was never inherently sinister. Sometimes watching was simply the early quiet season of love learning someone's character before it ever earned the right to speak. What if I told you the unease you have been feeling was never meant to make you run, but to make you look closer? Most people who sense they are being watched respond in one of 2 ways. They either panic and try to disappear, changing their routines, avoiding public places, letting fear shrink their world down to something small and defended. Or they ignore it completely, numbing the discomfort with noise and distraction until the feeling fades into the background of daily life. Heaven is asking you to choose a third response, the response almost nobody takes, which is simply to pay attention without panicking, to notice without assuming the worst, to hold the tension of not knowing yet, while trusting that the timing of the reveal is not in your hands and was never meant to be. Here is what has actually been happening behind the scenes of your ordinary days. This woman was placed near you, not by chance, not by her own scheming, but by an assignment she may not even fully understand herself yet. Somewhere in her own private season of searching, of praying, of asking whether her life had any real purpose, your name, or at least the shape of who you are, was placed into her spirit the way certain people appear in dreams long before we meet them in daylight. She began noticing details about the kind of person she felt drawn to, and slowly, without either of you orchestrating it, your paths began to overlap. A mutual acquaintance, a shared interest, a location you both frequent without realizing the other one is there at the same time. This is not manipulation, this is convergence. The quiet mathematics of destiny working itself out long before either of you has the language to describe what is happening. She has her own version of tonight's message, somewhere in her own private moments. A version where heaven has been telling her to be patient, to stop doubting what she feels, to stop assuming that the pull she feels toward you is simply her imagination running away with her. She has deleted messages she almost sent you. She has driven past places just hoping for a glimpse, then felt foolish for doing it. She has asked herself more than once whether she is chasing something that does not exist. If you feel foolish for everything you have noticed this season, know that she has felt exactly the same way, on her side of the same unfolding story. Have you ever met someone for the first time and felt, somewhere beneath logic, that you already knew them? That feeling is more common than people admit, and it is rarely random. Some encounters are simply new. Others are recognitions, moments where 2 people who have been orbiting each other in the unseen finally step into the same visible space, and something in both of them whispers, "There you are." If you have already had a brief encounter this year with someone you cannot stop thinking about, even someone you only spoke to for a few minutes, write the word recognized in the comments, because what you experienced may be exactly what this message is describing. There is a real warning buried inside this message, and it deserves your full attention, not just your curiosity. Not every presence that studies you from a distance is sent for your good, and the wisdom to tell the difference is something you must ask for now, before the moment of revelation arrives. This is the part where most people get careless, because the excitement of being chosen makes them stop asking hard questions. And that is precisely when discernment matters most. Watch for these signs and hold each one honestly against your own experience. First, does the thought of her bring a settled peace, even amid the mystery, or does it bring a constant undercurrent of anxiety that never fully lifts? Peace with unanswered questions is very different from anxiety disguised as excitement, and your body will always tell you the truth even when your mind wants to argue with it. Second, does everything about this unfolding situation happen at a pace that allows you to think clearly, or does it feel rushed, urgent, pressuring you to make decisions before you have had time to pray, to reflect, to ask trusted people around you what they see? Urgency is rarely a fruit of the spirit. Patience almost always is. Third, when you imagine this person fully known in the light with nothing hidden, does that image bring relief or does it bring dread? Whatever is truly from heaven can survive full exposure. Whatever is not will always prefer to stay in the shadows a little longer. Fourth, does the connection make you want to grow, to become steadier, kinder, more disciplined in how you live? Or does it pull you toward secrecy, toward compromise, toward decisions you would be ashamed to explain to the people who love you most? And fifth, when you bring this entire situation honestly before God in prayer, does your spirit feel quiet and settled afterward? Or does it feel more agitated than before you prayed? These 5 signs together will tell you almost everything you need to know long before she ever says a single word to you in person. This is why the warning exists at all. Somewhere in the coming weeks, this woman is going to move from watching to approaching. She has been building the courage for months, rehearsing what she might say, second-guessing herself, pulling back just as often as she has leaned in. You are not the only one who has felt fear in this. She has wrestled with the same uncertainty, wondering if she is imagining a connection that does not exist, wondering if stepping forward will be met with warmth or with rejection. Heaven is preparing both of you at the same time on parallel tracks, so that when the moment finally arrives, neither of you will be caught completely off guard, even if it still feels sudden when it happens. What would you do differently this week if you knew, without a shadow of doubt, that you were being watched by someone sent to help you rather than to hurt you? Most of us live guarded, assuming the worst about unfamiliar attention because the world has taught us caution is safer than openness. But caution without discernment can also close doors that heaven intended to open. This week, try something different. Instead of assuming every unexplained glance or coincidence is a threat, pause and ask a simple, honest question in your own heart. Lord, is this from you? That single question asked sincerely and repeatedly will do more to protect you and to prepare you than any amount of anxious speculation ever could. If you are willing to start asking that question daily, type the word ready in the comments right now, because readiness is the posture heaven is looking for before it reveals anything further. There are 3 common mistakes people make in a season exactly like this one, and avoiding them now will save you months of confusion later. The first mistake is forcing the timeline, trying to uncover who she is through obsessive searching, through interrogating every new acquaintance, through treating every unfamiliar woman as a suspect in an investigation, instead of simply living your ordinary life with open hands. Forcing almost always produces the wrong result, either attaching your hope to the wrong person or scaring away the very connection you were hoping to protect. The second mistake is overcorrecting into total dismissal, deciding that because you cannot control or explain what you're feeling, it must not be real, and therefore not worth any further attention. This robs you of the readiness heaven has been trying to build in you all along. The third mistake is telling everyone around you every detail of what you are sensing before it has fully unfolded, inviting outside opinions and doubts to trample something delicate that was never meant to be paraded in public before its time. Guard this season quietly. Share it with only 1 or 2 people you deeply trust, and let the rest of it remain between you and heaven until it is ready to be seen by everyone else. The fourth mistake, and perhaps the most common one, is trying to skip the waiting altogether by attaching this entire message to the first available person who seems to fit, whether or not the piece and the timing genuinely line up. Desperation for an answer will always try to fill in the blanks with whoever is closest and most convenient, but heaven's timing does not bend to your impatience, and forcing the wrong face into this story only delays the real one from ever arriving. What if she has already crossed your path this year, and you simply have not connected the moment to this message yet? Think of every brief, unremarkable interaction you almost forgot. A woman who held a door a second longer than necessary. Someone who asked a question in a group setting that seemed to be aimed only at you. A stranger whose glance you caught twice in the same week in two completely different places. You do not need to solve this puzzle tonight. You only need to hold it loosely, awake, without anxiety, trusting that heaven will connect the remaining pieces on its own timeline, not yours. Let me tell you what tends to happen in the days right before an encounter like this becomes visible. Small disruptions start appearing in your ordinary routine, almost like heaven is rearranging the furniture of your life to make room for something new. A schedule that has been fixed for months suddenly shifts. A friend introduces you to someone new who happens to mention her name, or a name very close to it in passing. You find yourself unexpectedly present at a gathering you almost skipped, and something in you says, stay a little longer than you planned. None of these disruptions look dramatic from the outside. They look like ordinary life being ordinary, but underneath the surface, they are the mechanism heaven uses to bring two separated threads of a story into the same page at last. Are you ready, truly ready, for what happens when the waiting ends, and the stranger finally steps into the light? Readiness does not mean having every answer prepared in advance. It does not mean rehearsing the perfect response to a moment you cannot fully predict. Readiness means having a heart that is settled enough to receive whatever heaven sends without grasping at it out of fear or desperation. It means trusting that if this connection is real, it will not require you to abandon wisdom, patience, or the counsel of people who genuinely love you. It means understanding that even a divine appointment still requires human discernment, ordinary conversation, and time, because heaven rarely skips the process of getting to know someone, even when it has already ordained the outcome. Have you thought about what practical readiness actually looks like? Beyond simply feeling calm about all of this, readiness has a physical side too, not just a spiritual one. It looks like getting enough rest so that your discernment is not clouded by exhaustion. It looks like keeping your closest relationships honest and healthy, because the people who already know you well will often notice the truth about a new connection faster than you can see it yourself, while standing inside the excitement of it. It looks like continuing to build your own life, your own goals, your own sense of purpose, instead of quietly pausing everything to wait for someone else to arrive and complete it. A woman sent by heaven is never sent to rescue you from an unfinished life. She is sent to walk alongside a life you were already building with intention. If your own foundation is unsteady right now, use this season of waiting to strengthen it, because whoever eventually steps forward will be met by the truest version of you, not a version frozen in anticipation. Some of you are wondering whether any of this applies if you have already been hurt badly by someone who watched you the wrong way, someone whose attention turned out to be exactly the dangerous kind we described earlier. If that is your story, hear this gently. Heaven is not asking you to erase caution. Caution earned through real pain is wisdom, not weakness, and nothing in this message asks you to abandon it. What heaven is asking is that you not let one wrong kind of watcher convince you that every form of attention is dangerous. Healing does not mean forgetting what harmed you. It means learning to tell the difference between the echo of that old pain and the genuine piece of something new and safe standing in front of you. Give yourself permission to notice that difference, slowly, at your own pace, without anyone rushing you toward trust before you're ready to offer it. Here is the turning point in this entire message, the part heaven wanted you to hear most of all. The warning was never primarily about her. It was about you, about the posture of your heart in this season. If you had received news of being watched with pure fear, you would have spent these months anxious and defensive, closing yourself off from a connection that was never meant to harm you. If you had received it with pure excitement and no discernment, you might have rushed towards someone before either of you was truly ready, mistaking mystery for certainty. Heaven gave you both the unsettled feeling and this explanation together on purpose, so that you would arrive at this exact moment, neither afraid nor careless, but awake. That is the actual gift hidden inside a message that sounded at first like a warning. So what happens now, in the coming days? Pay closer attention to new faces entering your circle through friends, through work, through places you frequent out of habit. Do not force anything. Do not go searching obsessively for a woman who matches some imagined description, because that kind of striving almost always misses what heaven intended to bring naturally. Instead, hold your everyday life open, unclenched, willing to be interrupted by something good. Keep showing up to the ordinary places you already go. The same coffee shop, the same gym, the same weekly gathering. Because heaven rarely reveals a divine appointment in a location you have abandoned out of impatience. When the moment of recognition finally comes, and it will come, you will know it not because of fireworks or dramatic coincidence, but because of that same settled peace we talked about earlier, the kind that does not need convincing. Notice, too, how you feel in the hours after this video ends. If a strange calm settles over you, if something that has felt tangled for months suddenly feels a little more like it is falling into place, that is not your imagination working overtime. That is confirmation. Sit with it. Do not rush to explain it away, and do not rush to over-explain it to anyone else either. Let it simply exist inside you as the quiet, knowing that something real is unfolding, on schedule, exactly the way it was always going to. If everything in this message has resonated with something true in your own life, this is the moment to respond, not passively, but out loud, in faith. Say it with your own mouth right now, even quietly. I receive discernment. I receive readiness. I receive whatever heaven is preparing for me in its right and perfect timing. Write the word Amen in the comments as your agreement with this prayer. Like this message if it found you at the exact right moment, because messages like this rarely arrive by accident. Subscribe so you do not miss what heaven reveals next in this unfolding season. And share this with someone who has also felt watched, unsettled, or strangely hopeful this year, because they may be standing exactly where you're standing right now, waiting for permission to pay attention. Before this message ends, there is one more thing worth saying plainly, because warnings are only useful when they lead somewhere. You are not being hunted, you are being prepared. The months of quiet watching were never about someone gaining power over you. They were about someone and something far larger than her, making sure that when your story finally turns its next page, you would recognize it, receive it with wisdom, and walk into it with your eyes wide open instead of your guard fully up or fully down. That is the difference between fear and discernment, and heaven has spent this entire season teaching you the second one. And if, after everything you have heard tonight, you search your heart honestly and find that none of the 5 signs line up, if the anxiety has not lifted, if the pressure to rush has not eased, if praying about it leaves you more unsettled instead of less, then trust that outcome just as much as you would trust a positive one. Not every season of being watched ends in a beautiful reunion. Sometimes the entire purpose of this kind of warning is protection, plain and simple. Teaching you to recognize unhealthy attention early enough to set a boundary before it costs you anything. Heaven's goal was never to guarantee a romance. Heaven's goal was to guarantee your discernment. Whichever direction this unfolds, that discernment is now yours to keep, and no one can take it back from you. Hold on to this one closing thought before we pray together. Every meaningful connection in history that felt sudden to the 2 people involved was almost never actually sudden. It was simply the visible ending of an invisible process that had been unfolding for a long time before anyone could see it. What feels to you like months of strange, unexplainable watching is, from heaven's perspective, simply the last stretch of a much longer preparation. One that started before you even knew her name existed, and one that is now nearing its appointed conclusion. You do not have to manufacture the ending. You only have to remain awake for it, which, if you have listened this far, you clearly already are. Let this be the prayer you carry out of this message. Lord, thank you for not letting me walk blindly into this season. Thank you for the discomfort that taught me to pay attention, and thank you for the peace that is now teaching me not to be afraid. Give me wisdom to recognize what is truly from you, and patience to wait for it to unfold the right way, without rushing, without forcing, without shrinking back out of fear. If this woman is truly part of the story you are writing for me, prepare both of our hearts fully before you bring us face to face, and let our first real conversation be honest, unhurried, and free of pretending. And if there's anything in this season that is not from you, remove it gently and protect me from mistaking noise for a calling or attention for love. I trust your timing more than my own understanding, and I trust your discernment more than my own excitement. In faith, I receive this. Amen. If you said that prayer with an honest heart, you are not the same person who pressed play on this video a few minutes ago. Something in you has shifted from anxious watching to peaceful readiness, and that shift alone is worth more than any answer about who she is or when she will appear. Write the word peace in the comments if that is true for you right now, like this message, so that heaven knows you received it. Subscribe so that the next part of this unfolding story reaches you the moment it is ready, and share this with the one person in your life who needs to hear that being watched is not always something to fear. Sometimes it is simply love arriving early, learning your heart quietly before it ever earns the right to speak, and waiting patiently for the right moment to finally say hello.